In this video, we're going to talk about the final essential method that's part of the object class. It's the equals method. And the equals method performs a activity that we're already familiar with. We've actually used this method with strings to test the equality of strings. The equals method is used to determine if the value of two objects are equal. So if you're writing the student class, the equals method would tell Java how to figure out, are two objects of type student identical? So first we're going to look at the default implementation that's provided in the object class to see how that works for our student. And then we'll decide, do we need to create a custom version or do we not need to create a custom version? Remember that some of the methods that are part of the object class work well right out of the box, and we don't have to do anything special, like the get class method. Other methods are things that we probably want to customize to be more useful, things like the toString method. So we're going to create two different objects of type student. We're going to do student 1 and student 3, and then we're going to compare them to see if they're equal. So I'm going to add some code to my main program in my student project. So we already have student 1 lined up, and then I'm going to make a second object using the same data, and then we'll print both of them just so that we can see. All right, so I'm reading in all of this content, and then I'm making my student 1, and I'm printing out the data about student 1. And then I don't really need this bottom part of the program. I'm just going to put comments around that for now, so we don't have to mess with it. And then I'm going to go back up here, and I'm going to make a student type object student 3 and make that equal to student type. I'm going to use those same data values that I used to create student 1. I'm going to use the first name, last name, GPA, and credits earned that the user enters. And now I'm going to print those values out. I'm just going to copy and paste to save some time. So I need to print student 3 for both of those. So I've read in one set of data about a student. I made one student object called student 1 using that information and printed it out. And then I did the same data and created a second object with that data, student 3, and then I printed the student 3 data out. Now I want to add a print statement in there so that I can say, is student 1 the same as student 3? And then I'm going to call the equals method. So let me add that in there. So I want to call student1 dot equals and then student 3. Cool. All right, let's run our code, see if it works. See what happens. So we're going to enter our last name and first name. Let me use the values that are on our project sheet. It says, like, what do you think would happen if we type in Joe Smith 3.5 and 40 credits? You think it's going to tell us that the two values are equal or not? So in both cases, it prints out the same information. Student 1 is an object of the student class. It's Joe Smith, 3.5, 40 credits. Whoops, I forgot to change the labels. So this is student 3. Let me run that again just so it's not confusing. Joe Smith, 40 credits. So in both cases, it stores the same information. Student 1 has Joe Smith, 3.5, 40 credits, and student 3 has that same information, Joe Smith, 3.5, 40 credits. And then when we compare the two, this is surprising to most people, it says that the two objects are not equal. It returns a false value. Let's think about why it does that. So it does that because the equals method by default, the one that's in the object class, compares memory addresses associated with the two objects. So it's comparing the memory address of student 1 to the memory address of student 3. And then because these two objects are actually separate objects, they're not identical, the same object, it returns a false value, even though we'd probably expect it to return true. That's because we usually think about objects being equal if their contents are equal, not if the location where they're stored is equal. So if we want to change how the equals method works so that it's more useful to us on our program, we just have to override the equals method to tell Java how to appropriately compare objects of type student. And we can set that up however it makes sense for our files. So if we're creating a data type student and we want to compare all 4 data fields, we want to say 2 students are only equal if their last name, first name, GPA, and credits earned are all the same. That's cool. But we're also not obligated by Java to test all of those things. If we just want to test the last name and first name, and we don't care if the 2 GPAs or credits match, that's fine. Java will let us do that. Or more realistically, our student class should probably have some unique identifier associated with it, some data field that stores an ID value or a user ID that's unique for each student. Because I'm sure you know that there's multiple students on campus that have the same first name and last name. And so we'd want to be able to distinguish between them. So it's possible to check all the different data fields. It's also possible to just base the result of the equals method on a single data field. It's up to you as the author of the class to make that decision and code the overridden method so that it makes sense for your data type.